Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. I have an opportunity that was foisted on me by the great Dr. Rob Finefield regarding Food Forward, which is a organization that feeds the hungry in the greater Los Angeles area, and doing it around a concert photo of from the concert for Bangladesh. That featured my guest as one of the drummers, iconic lineup, members of the Beatles and people like Eric Clapton and Leon Russell, and I hope this interview will go a long way towards finding a new home or a home for the iconic photo, and we can make some people feel better and a little more inspired about life. Jim Keltner, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thank you, Jake. It's good to be back.
It's great to hear you, man. I wanted to ask you, this is what you told me, and you said the first time I played with Bob Dylan was in New York with Leon, Carl Radle, and Jesse Ed Davis. That was one of my all-time favorite rhythm sections. We played Watching the River Flow. I was sitting there on the drums watching Leon groove his butt off, watching Dylan standing right up against the wall, mouthing the lyrics. Now, I think that was 1971. Was that the same time as the concert of Bangladesh?
It must have been right around that time. Yeah, sounds like it was.
Just because when Dylan showed up at the concert for Bangladesh, Cliff Lipson told me that nobody knew if he was going to come or not. They knew he was in New York, but nobody knew if he was going to show up.
Yeah, I think this is a concert for George you're talking about, or what? Or are you talking about Bangladesh?
Yeah, well, the concert for Bangladesh is the one that George Harrison put on, but Dylan obviously showed up and played that night.
Yeah, well, I think George probably knew that he was. George and Bob were very close, and not many people that I know anyway can say that about being that close with Bob, but I think George was for sure. And probably George had. I'm almost certain that it was George. It wouldn't have been some kind of form of management they called Bob. I'm sure it was George.
Had you?
And then it might have been. Yeah. It might not have been real clear necessarily 100% that he was going to be able to make it, but. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know that.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think, Kelder, I mean, you're going to have to hit me to this, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about the first time you met John Lennon, Ringo, or the Beatles, essentially. Like, did you meet them all at one time, or was it in separate occasions?
No, it was separate occasions. The first Beatle I met was John, I think, pretty sure. And then George, and then Ringo, and then Paul. I think I don't.
No, you know what it is. I'm trying to figure out the nexus because I'm looking at your studio albums. Cal Jader does Bach Rock, Claire Fisher. But then in 70, you were doing a Lennon record, and was that because of Phil Spector? I'm just trying to figure out the nexus of how you connected with John originally.
Yeah, that was it. It was. That's why I've always said that it's heartbreaking to me the trajectory of Phil Spector's career, life.
Right. Right.
The guy, depending on your feelings about him and all that, you'll call him a genius or you'll call him, a disturbed individual or whatever, but the fact is that, for me, he opened the door for me and it was big, wide, swung open. And just because, I picked up the phone that one morning, and he said, well, do you want to come and play? on John's record? And I said, yeah, I'll be there. And I got my buddy to loan me his drums, and in fact, he picked me up, and
That's awesome.
He picked me up in his car, had his drums in there, Mini Cooper, little set of yellow Gretsch drums, and he drove me to Ascot. You know, it was a pleasure for him to do. You know, he's driving to John Lennon's house, and so it was fun for all of us involved.
Now let me ask you a question. You obviously you didn't own your own kit at that time, or you needed to borrow a kit?
Well, I owned some drums, but they were in Los Angeles.
Right.
You know, this was in Ascot. You know, I was moving between London and Surrey. I was staying with Clapton at that time in Surrey.
Oh wow!
And we were recording. We were driving in every day, late afternoon, to Olympic in Barnes, which is outside of London, and so that's where I was staying. And then John's house was in Ascot, and so you know, I didn't really have any drums at the time, and it wasn't. You know, it wasn't the days when I would say, you know, well, I'll bring, you know, I mean, it didn't matter to me about drums, you know. I could play on anybody's drums.
I don't think I realized, though, that you actually lived over there for a while.
No, I wasn't living there.
Yeah.
I was there. I was staying there because of, you know, I think it was, it's stupid to not know this stuff.
No, it's not. It's going back, and you haven't been thinking all about this in years.
Yeah,
you know,
it's going back a long way.
But
man.
Siri, like you're like, how did you with Clapton? How did that collaboration? I mean, how did you wind up there?
See, I had already met Eric with Delaney and Bonnie.
That's right.
You know, he fell in love with Delaney and Bonnie, the whole thing, all of us and all that, and so Eric was hanging with us all the time, you know, and we did little tours I did with him before I got myself fired. But you played
in Clapton's band?
No, Delaney and Bonnie's.
And Delaney's, but you got fired from Delaney and Bonnie. Did he see you? Did he see you in America, or did you connect with him originally? Like, did he come see you guys at the Whiskey A Go Go or something, or some?
Oh, you know what? I never was absolutely. I mean, I think there's some books. Bobby Whitlock's got a book out there that explains when Eric came on board with Delaney and Bonnie and all of that.
Right.
That whole thing. And all I knew was that I met him early on, and it was in L.A., and it was, you know, the great Eric Clapton, and everybody was knocked out, and he was a nice guy, and he instead of him riding in his own limo like Ginger and what's his name, Jack, you know, he chose to ride with us on the funky bus. So we had different feelings about Eric. You know, I mean, I just remember feeling really good about Eric. I remember feeling like he was just a real good, humble cat.
Yeah, solid cat.
And from Git, he was easy to play with, fun to play with, and you couldn't seem to go wrong when you were playing with him. That's what I remember. And so we got along. We all got along real well in those days. And then, you know, I made a fatal error. I told Delaney, basically, I got angry with Delaney because he wouldn't let me get a sub. I wanted to go back to New York and do a record with Lena Horne and Gabor. And I said, hey, Delaney, you know, I had it all worked out where I was going to leave at 6 p.m., but we were doing this TV show called Harper Valley PTA.
I've seen the records all the time. I know those records, dude.
And
unbelievable.
And so we were we were just doing a little bit on that TV show, and it took all day. In those days, that's the way TV was, and so it got down to where I was going to miss my flight if I didn't go. So I told Delaney, listen, I got Jim Gordon, or I got Jimmy Karstein, or Chuck Blackwell. Any one of those guys can take my place. And he said, you're the drummer, you got to play. And, you know, he made me angry, but years later when he would apologize, he was always telling me years later, he said, oh, damn it, Jimmy, that's the worst thing I ever did was fire you. And I said, and I'd always tell him, Delaney, you had no choice. I left you no choice, man. And so, you know, anyway, I always wanted him to understand that that it was a bad move on my part. Although,
why? I mean, all I'm saying is, so at the time you were like, okay, I'm hitting the road. You were like,
yeah. I said I got to go do this thing.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, it was only a couple of days, but he called me later in my hotel room in New York, and he said, "You don't have to come back early for us. You've been replaced." And I felt like jumping out the window. You know,
that feeling like you hit the bottom.
It was a great gig for. I loved their music, and I couldn't believe that I had gotten myself fired. But then I was smart enough to know why, and I let that be a very valuable lesson for me. So
you're okay. I want to go back to this. So your friend drives you out to Lennon's house. Can you just talk about the experience? That was the first time you met John.
I met John and Yoko was when I was to go out there and play on a song called "Don't Want to Be a Soldier, Mama," and but the thing is, for that to be correct, which it is correct, that's what I was there for that morning, was to play on Don't Be a Soldier, Mama. And the reason I was there to do that was because I had been with John and Phil in the control room while Jim Gordon was out in the room trying to overdub drums on the track that they had laid down for Don't Want to Be a Soldier, Mama. And Jimmy, you know, Jimmy was one of my heroes, so this has nothing to do with his ability. This was completely the fact that John was wanting something different. And Phil's job as producer was to try to get, you know, to get it to happen for him. And as I said, they had Jimmy there. And Jimmy apparently had already played on maybe one or two of his songs. This is on Imagine, the record Imagine. I think Jimmy played on one or two of the other songs. And then, so the mystery for me is why I was there in the control room with them. I'm still not certain about that. But
where were your other choices to be? I mean, you weren't going to go in the studio where Gordon was. I mean, where else were you going to go?
No, so what it was, I was in the control room, and we were all watching Jimmy struggle to figure out what they wanted, and Phil turned to me at one point and said, "Do you know what we're talking about? Can you do that?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, go out." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it right now. I'm not going to do that."
Wow.
Because I couldn't go out there in front of Jimmy.
No, I think I respect that.
And do that. Respect.
Absolutely.
And it just was wrong.
Right.
You know, it just was wrong. And so they booked me for later, and I'm not sure, I was like the next day or 2 days later, something like that. And then when I came in, I was expecting to play that song, and instead, the first song we played was Jealous Guy. So I was taken off guard, and it knocked me out. It was so beautiful, the little song, you know. Klaus played, it was just his perfect style for him, and Nicky Hopkins was like the epitome of the English garden. You could just smell it, let alone look at it and see it in your mind. You know, when he played, it just was an English garden.
Absolutely,
it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And
oh man.
So, yeah, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
But so he So John, sang it real nice, and he loved it, and Phil loved it. Everybody loved it, and so everybody was happy. And then I did just on my own. I'm pretty sure. This is what's embarrassing. I don't recall whether we played it live or I played to the track that was already laid down for I Don't Want to Be a Soldier.
What does your gut tell you?
I think my gut tells me that I played to the pre-record, although it might not have been because I remember that it was real easy to do, and that tells me that it was live. All of us playing live, because things can move around a little bit.
The song that you got thrown off by, that was not something he even told you about. He just gave you. Were there any chord changes? Was there or did you guys start the beat and he just started to sing?
What do you mean on Jealous Guy?
Yes.
No, he had chord charts for everybody, but it was just such a simple little song. There are many times when I don't look at a chart if the song just speaks to me and it's real simple. Jealous Guy is just so basic. It's and it's so John in that it just teleports you there and each little verse and chorus are just so symmetrical and wonderful. There was no chart needed. I think maybe Klaus, but Klaus didn't use charts either. Klaus never used charts. I don't think Klaus read music.
Klaus, it was a maniac, dude. His piano teacher had to put a dog collar on his neck so he would look at the music. The guy was out of control, man. Brilliant cat. But you work on a couple of those tracks. Was there you must have worked with Spector prior to in the States, I guess, with Delaney and Bonnie, maybe? You already had. Did you have a relationship with him before?
No.
Wow.
No, Phil Spector was, that was Phil Spector. The only thing that saved me from being like, wow, I'm working with Phil Spector was the fact that I was working with fucking John Lennon. So
yeah, no, it was a little bit higher, yeah.
So when you think about being in the room with John Lennon and Phil Spector together, it was I was very, very thankful that later that I had real good trust in human nature, the way I read people. I had a good. I got that from my dad, I think, and so I felt really good about them as long as I was delivering. That's what I had just enough studio experience at that point to know that that's it. That's the key. If you're delivering, everybody loves you. Everything is fine. And
I did.
If you're not getting it, if it's not happening, everybody's going to be real sweet, and you're going to be gone, and that's all there is to it.
But that didn't never happen to you. That was always the fear, but it never manifested.
Well, I never. But this is what I'm saying. I never feared that. I never had that fear. I ran. See, this is the thing that, you hear people tell stories about Spector. I never had anything but fantastic experiences with Phil. And the reason is obvious, is because I was always either with John or George or, Leonard Cohen or somebody like that, And so Phil, but John and George put the stamp of righteousness, for me with Phil. So every time I worked with Phil after that, it was like a little brotherhood between me and him. None of the other cats in the room.
Wow, that's a great bond. Yeah.
Or with John, and George, like that.
Sure.
So I had so that's like I said in the beginning here. That's what's so heartbreaking to me is the fact that I would have loved to have had an old friendship with Phil, to blossom at this age and everything. But it wasn't meant to be. He did have too many demons. He had obviously, he fought all kinds of stuff. No telling what it was. I'm no expert at that stuff, and not many people are.
Mm-hmm.
So people just have opinions and things, and strong opinions, about somebody like Spector. But as I said,
it's like that Little Feat tune. Time loves a hero. Like, does over time you feel his reputation has been sullied? I mean, to me.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course he killed a woman. He killed a human being. That's unforgivable for a lot of people, and especially then when you put everything together, because that's what happens is once you've done something horrible like that, then all the other things, whatever else you've done that's could be marginal or
it's all magnified. Yeah.
It all starts to pile on, and then you see a picture emerge of this person, and it could be accurate or not, but it doesn't matter at that point. Poor Phil. I just always remember feeling bad, really, really bad, that like he didn't have control over himself. He just didn't have the control, but many of us in those days when we were doing the stupid things that we were doing, we didn't have control either. It's just that we didn't end up in a horrible situation like he ended up in. And who knows? So who knows what?
Well, I mean, you've told me that before. I think that, I think I know where you stand on that. Can you honestly? I have a prediction. I believe that you you hated the Beatles because you were a jazz snob.
No, I didn't hate the Beatles.
That's too strong a word.
I didn't want to like them like everybody was.
What is it? Okay, explain what. So but also can you just talk about being that you and Stinson were trying to be Philly Joe and Paul Chambers, all these cats.
No, Albert wasn't trying to be anybody. Albert was.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, dude. No, I know.
Was Mingus. Mingus was his hero.
Well, Mingus was Mingus, but I mean Stinson was Stinson. Dude.
And so he was Charlie Mingus. There was no doubt about it. And when the real cats, yeah. When Albert got back to New York and those guys heard him play, Miles and all of them, they all wanted him in their bands, man. They all wanted to play with this little white, and that's all there was to it. He was just bad to the bone, and it wasn't any question about he's young, he's white, he's any of that. He had the strength and the tone and the sound of Charles Mingus. And he had the facility of a Scott LaFaro.
Wow.
And he had the beautiful, beautiful time feel of Ron Carter. So he had everything. He had everything, man. He had everything. He listened to Paul Chambers and all those records. He listened to all those records when he was a kid, when he was coming up. And by the time he was 22 or something, he was, I think, 1967, I don't know. I hate trying to do the math. He was just a freaking kid. And he was playing by that point, he had Miles. He was subbing for Ron Carter, and Miles wanted him in the band.
Yeah, no, Swallow told me he borrowed Stinson borrowed his bass to go to Boston. He died up there, and I'm not sure if Swallow ever got it, but I mean he was connected to Coryell, all the cats. But you know what I wanted you to just talk about like Ringo specifically, not I mean because they were original songwriters. Looking back in hindsight, before you got to know him personally and were able to play with him, what was brilliant about his feel on those records, as that even a bop purist can appreciate?
Well, first of all, you know, you gotta appreciate the fact that Ringo, like Charlie, happened to land with some guys that were unusual, we'll say, unusually gifted, and so they had that going for them, Charlie and Ringo, and but then you also have to remember that at that time, Ringo, as well as Charlie, both those guys were known to be the best drummers in that area or that genre, whatever. I don't know what it was, but they all said of Ringo, they said Ringo was the baddest cat. Everybody wanted him in their band because every time he played with somebody, their band lifted up and it just sounded incredible.
Wow.
So when he hit it with the Beatles for the first time, they knew immediately, and so they did everything in their power to keep him because they had gone through many drummers, the Beatles. And from what I understand, the same thing happened with Charlie. The Stones had quite a few drummers, and when Charlie played with them for the first time, they felt it click, and they did everything in the world to try to keep him happy. You know, because he wanted to swing. He wanted to play in some jazz groups or big band stuff or whatever. That's where his heart was.
Absolutely, and you can hear that in the tunes and in the rock in their own way, you know.
But now with Ringo,
right?
Ringo was a pure rocker. He was a pure rocker.
Pure rocker.
And he listened to the American rock and roll stuff just like everybody did. And then he had Lennon and McCartney and Harrison writing songs and playing because they were all doing it too. You know, George was just such a badass rock guitar player. He had all of that stuff down. He had all that rockabilly stuff. He had all that early rock and roll crazy ass stuff. George could do all of that, and yet there was this other George that nobody even had a clue about until later. And so they were just unusual in that, you know, they were a gift from above. You know, those guys came to, they were, you know, when Ringo, when it started to click with them, Ringo, first of all, they became really good friends. Ringo loved, you know, and to know John is to know that, you know, Ringo would have loved him, which he did. And John Lennon always told me, when I say always, he must have told me several times on several different occasions that were pertinent to the situation. He said, Ringo will always be my favorite drummer. Ringo will always be my favorite drummer. And I always loved hearing him say that because I would say immediately, I said, me too. All I wanted to do during that time was to be able to play as good as he did on songs, like on a song,
right,
on a great song. And you know, he had a feel that I emulated, and so did every other drummer practically in the world at that time. You know, you couldn't get away from Beatles if you wanted to. Beatle music was everywhere on every kind of radio.
So it would be considered pop music, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, whatever it's.
Because I mean, it was very hip at the time. When you say his feel, I was watching the video of Wawa, the George song that you played at Bangladesh, and some beautiful video of you and Ringo playing double drums. And as best you can, I just, as far as like, what was your role? You almost are playing like a jazz drummer. Like Ringo's playing rock, he's rocking straight ahead. And you're playing. Can you just talk about what your role was specifically?
My role was to play double drums with Ringo, and what that meant to me was to not get in the way of his feel. The sound, I figured I had already become educated enough to know that the sound live on the stage is meaningless. It's going to be whatever the whatever the house is about, however many people are there, the people at the board, making this, manipulating the microphone, all kinds of factors in that. So I didn't even consider the sound very much, a bit. But the thing for me was I did not want to play in such a way that it would destroy that beauty, the thing that I loved about Ringo so much. And so as we started to play, I realized, okay, what's wrong here is I got to stop playing the hi-hat, because he owns the hi-hat.
Right.
On all the Beatle records, that's, and just in general, the way he plays hi-hat is beautiful. That's one of the things that we all love so much. We don't know necessarily. Maybe you don't know if you're not a drummer. But, his use of the hi-hat was brilliant. And so I discovered that right away. It was one of the first things I took care of, was to make sure that I didn't play much hi-hat at all.
You felt like the afternoon show, like you figured that out between the two different shows?
No, I don't know when I figured it out, but it was early enough to make a difference. I had already begun to be affected by Levon, because I was hanging out with Levon a lot, and so I was doing naturally. It wasn't that I was copying it. I was actually doing it naturally, that lifting the stick off the hi-hat on 2 and 4. And that was a real, since I had already started to do that, it was easy then for me to even play less hi-hat, so that Ringo could have the primary hi-hat.
Right.
And then after that, it was good because I played kind of at the same level as Ringo. When Jimmy Gordon, this is Ringo telling me, when he played with Jimmy Gordon and a few other guys, I think, they played real strong. And so, bless their hearts, they either didn't know or whatever. But that's not, you can't cover Ringo up. If you do that, then why do you have Ringo there? Why don't you just have those guys do it?
Absolutely.
And so that was a good thing in my favor, was that I kind of played at a volume level that was similar to Ringo's. So that wasn't a problem. And then also, and most importantly, I had been so accustomed to listening to Levon and Ringo that my time feel was just a little on the backside, just like Ringo. So when we played together, like with the backbeats, there are many times where I was blown away because I couldn't hear. I thought, wait a minute, does it sound like two drums?
Right.
And yet we were that tight And so fill-wise, playing fills and stuff, I did kind of the same thing. I tried to stay away from too many fills. I did a couple of little things, like with the floor tom, I remember now, on, I don't know, waiting on, one of the big George kind of up-tempo things, and I made that be like a little part of the thing. And otherwise, we just barreled through, and then what few fills there was, it would be Ringo, and then I might come in at the end, or I might say it was very, very, the idea being to not smother any part of Ringo's playing, feel, sound, groove,
Well, what about the idea of just having, like you say, play counter rhythms or play acts? But I mean,
well, I didn't play any counter.
Yeah, I don't mean it like. I mean,
that would have probably come later had we, done a lot of stuff together. Like
no, but I mean, like you added some extra punch because it was a state. I mean, it was MSG. It was a big place,
Yeah. Without hearing, I've become so. If we were listening, and then talking, then I could answer, or I could comment on some of the things that you're talking about, but not, not hearing it. I can't remember to comment too much about it.
Yeah, no, like how did you? Was that the first time that you had played double drums with Ringo?
Yeah, I believe so. Sure, it wouldn't have been any other time. I think it was, Bangladesh was the first time.
Bangladesh was the first time. So, can you talk about how you met George Harrison?
I think I really believe that I met George for the first time in the hallway, coming out of the bathroom at John's. They call it mansion in Ascot. And we were recording. Imagine was mostly recorded in his bedroom. It was a little room, and then the bathroom was right next door. And Alan White's vibraphone was in the bathroom because that's where it sounded the best.
Wow.
Made it very difficult to pee. Had to jockey around, But coming out of that bathroom one time, I remember seeing George walking down the hallway, and I think that's where I first met him.
Was this during the Imagine session, or this was after?
This is during the Imagine sessions.
And so you guys developed a rapport musically.
But I didn't see him work. I didn't see him play or anything. He was there, I think, overdubbing and stuff.
Right. And then at a certain point, you went back to the States, went back home. And then when did you reconnect, I guess, with George at that, to work on actually the album?
With George?
Yeah. Had you been in the studio with him before Concert for Bangladesh? Had you recorded with him or only Lennon?
Man, Jake, I'm really sorry. I guess I need warning for certain things, because like if I had my book in front of me, I could look and tell you. But for some reason I just can't ever get chronology together. It's just, I don't know what came I can't, it's all kind of a little bit of a blur. If I see it in my book, I can tell you.
It's okay. What it's really fine. I mean, what do you remember about, like, being the cause of the concert? Do you remember being impacted? Like, were you part of were you aware of what was happening in that country?
Well, yes, I was. We were all very well aware, because George was so passionate, about his feeling for Ravi and Ravi's people, and his love of all things India. George was George was very clear on why we were there. You know, there were a lot of people suffering. And in that song, the lyrics to his song, Bangladesh, it just is beautiful. And I love the groove. I always love the groove on it. We cut the track for Bangladesh in L.A. I remember that. I do remember that. And it was just me playing on it. So the next time we played it, like at the concert, it was Ringo and me together.
Interesting.
But Bangladesh, the track, it was, and I think it was Leon, and we all did it in L.A. And it was, you know, it was for a great cause, obviously. George was so his love for the Indian, I don't know what to call it, he used to straighten me out on stuff like that. He would say he was so easy to go like, you know, blah blah blah, and I go, oh yeah, right, because I was so clumsy talking about the you know, Krishna, the faith.
So he was very articulate about.
You talk about the Vedanta, and he was really articulate about it, and it was beautiful. And I remember that, you know. My mom raised me, you know, to believe in what Jesus said, you know, about everything, and I didn't, you know, that's, you know, your mom is usually the one. My dad, you know, wasn't really, he was always working, so he didn't, you know, he didn't figure any of that kind of stuff. But my mom. And she had so many sisters, and there were so many cousins and all that. But it was interesting. We all didn't go to the same church, you know. In fact, the only little church that I remember was like a little Mexican church, and there was no English spoken, so it didn't mean a thing to me, you know, because my mom didn't teach us Spanish. She didn't want us to speak Spanish because we were very un-Mexican looking.
Right.
My sister and I.
Right.
My little sister that died would have been more, she would have looked more like my mom. But my sister and me, we ended up looking more like my dad, very fair, you know. And so she liked that, and she didn't want us to speak Spanish and call attention to any of that. The Mendozas, my family, the Mendozas, and cousins, the Cervantes, they all, the older people, the aunts and the uncles, they all were, when we got together, we would see them like on weekends and stuff, and unbelievable food that spoiled me for Mexican food for the rest of my life. There's no, I can't find it anywhere.
You'll never find it anywhere.
No. And so, but all of that, but yet when they went out into the world, like and they had to do their gigs and stuff, they knew how to not call attention to themselves. And that was a big thing. And so as a kid, that meant nothing to me. Later on growing up, I realized what it was they went through. And then you realize what the black folks had to go through. If that's the way the Mexicans were doing it, the black people had to be even more careful. Had to be careful who they looked at, how they looked at them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It was a different time, and so anyway, I went off course.
No, you didn't. You were talking about the Vedantas and being clumsy.
But the thing is, with George, when George would talk to me about his faith, and Krishna and all, it sounded really familiar. And he knew enough to tell me. He would compare, and he would say, well, Christ did this and Christ said that, and on and on. And so it just all kind of made sense to me. And then there would always be somebody that would go, well, yeah, but, and then try to get real dogmatic about this and that. And I never liked that anyway, because I think my dad was like that. My dad, he said, it's not supposed to argue about religion,
Mm-hmm. It's a very personal thing,
it's like personal argument. What are you trying to do, And then other people say, well, you're supposed to try to get people to, to see it your way or whatever. And I don't know. I always understood from when I would hear a great preacher, I would always understand what he was doing and what he was saying, and it felt good to me. And then I realized later on, that some people have that gift.
That's right. That's right.
But it's when the average Joe tries to be like that. All he does is alienate, piss somebody off, and do the opposite.
Absolutely, it's not authentic. Exactly, he's
trying to set out to do.
He's a fraud.
And so anyway, I always considered that George was a tremendous asset to me in my life, faith-wise. He helped me to understand how really. That love is the answer. Love is truly the answer to the whole thing. And you can have people then right away go, oh yeah, well cool, that's cool, but that ain't all of it. And you can say, yeah, right, yeah, I'm sure that's not all of it, but that's the one thing that Jesus said very clearly, is that to love your neighbor is one, and don't put anything else before God. Those two commandments were, that said it all. That's what Jesus said. You don't have to worry about all the other commandments really that much. If you can do those, you pretty much got it. He said, on those two commandments hang all the prophecy. So that made sense to me.
Well, no, what you're trying to say is this is really important, because the first time I connected with you, Keltner, I was like, the one thing that I felt about you, regardless of your faith, what you believe in, I'm like, the dude knows how to love. He has self-love and he loves other people. And so would you say that without George in your life, you maybe would never have been introduced to that side of faith?
Well, I certainly wouldn't have been secure like I got later on. Like I just never felt like there was a rub or anything. There were some people who I could feel they were uncomfortable with, having to hear so much talk about God and various ways and so forth and all that. Because there were a lot of people who during our time as young people in our generation, there were a lot of people who were struggling with the idea of God, so there was a lot of, I don't like to use the word atheist, because I'm not sure that there was enough there to actually qualify as atheistic. I think it was more searching and questioning, and that's exactly what the human mind is there for. Mm-hmm. That's what God created the mind for.
Not to conform, but to be absolutely.
There's so much more. Yeah, there's so much more. And anyway, so you can say, oh look, this is about a personal journey and all that. All those things are there's truth in all those things, And so, to me, like I said, I think that the key to being, a good citizen on the planet is to try to be try to show as much love as you can. Try to sow it, try to spread it, and it's like just the other day. I had a fender scraper. It wasn't a fender bender. It was a fender scraper. I pulled out in front of a little truck. It was LA traffic is unbelievable right now, and so
it's
I
never
was looking
good.
in
Yeah.
every direction, and still a little truck got there before, and
Oh,
a little pickup truck.
Yeah.
And so it was like a virtual scrape. We got out of the car. The guy was a real nice guy, and he had his mom in the car and his son, and they all got out of the car and looked to see what was going on. And I took pictures of the damage to his truck and the damage to my car, and it was truly like a scrape.
Right.
There was no collision. It was, and so the guy was real nice. He was a Peruvian man, and so we're talking, and he said, "Do you want to go through the insurance? Maybe it doesn't look like there's anything here to it. So if you don't want to go through the insurance, you know a good body shop." I said, "I don't know any body shops. I haven't done this in a long time. So why don't you go to the body shop and then send me a thing? And if it's not too much, I'll just go ahead and pay for it." I called my insurance man, and he goes, "No. That's a very bad idea. That's why you're insured, Jimmy." And so I said, "Okay, good. I got you. So, anyway, suffice to say, after all this, talking with this really nice man, and I had a few texts back and forth, "Thank you, Jimmy." And I told him, I gave him the name of my adjuster and all that. Then I find out that some attorney, what do you call it? What do they call them? The personal injury attorney.
Accident attorney.
Has gotten a hold of these people.
Oh, no.
And now they're all going to see doctors, and so it's all a big bullshit kind of thing. And it just, and I was telling, the people, I was saying, it's so disturbing.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Yeah.
You lose faith in the humanity. It's like, that's what this stuff is meant to do, is to make you lose faith in humanity and not see your brother as your keeper anymore. Or, you be your brother's keeper anymore. He's your freaking enemy. He's going to take advantage of you the first chance he gets. But you can't live your life like that. These are things that happen in the world, and that's not going to make me. If this thing goes to trial, like they told me, it won't go to trial. They'll settle for something.
I mean, Keltner, do not. This happened to me once before. I think dude, just let them send their paperwork. It's all a bunch of. It'll just float away. Nonsense. And
right.
and I want to be very clear. You've been very clear with me. Miracles happen every day. Just you perform things not even consciously. You're helping people out. You just stay on the righteous path, and you'll be cool. And I mean, it's why is there such a God? I don't even know if I want to open this Pandora's box, but just the concept of love, and people say, "Oh yeah, okay, that's so wishy-washy," and it's about you got to be.
You got to be hard
and like, and I mean,
because,
but somehow that becomes like
run over you.
Yeah, it becomes like, but hard becomes intolerant, like not loving thy neighbor, just sort of almost like I don't know. It's not. It's certainly not what guys like George professed in his own way. I mean, I think that was clearly some divine exposure for you. I mean, that's it shaped your worldview.
Yeah, it certainly helped me to understand, that God is big. God is, I think really what I say is God is love, and because that's what's in the Bible, actually.
Well, no, you wax poetic on this, man.
I don't know if it's in the Quran or not either, but it's but certainly in the Bible, the Judeo-Christian thing is all about God is love, and so that pretty much takes care of it there for me. I think then I don't have to
absolutely.
I don't have to go into details about this and that and everything. I think, God has our back if he, and the other thing is, what I like knowing about God is that he knows our heart better than we know our hearts. So he knows if I'm trying to live right, and if I'm not, it's going to be me who pays the price. And he's not a deliverer of punishment. It's me. I will call, and in the Indian religion, they call it karma.
Right.
We can make bad choices and suffer them, so, or we can, we can do the right thing. Anyway, so
that leads to this question is, before the concert for Bangladesh, Ravi and Ali Akbar Khan opened the show. Did you hang with Ravi and Alu Raka? Did you ever hang with those cats?
No, not in a traditional hang sense.
No,
no.
I mean, not hanging at Lagos's house, but I'm talking like
but we were at dinners and things.
Can you talk about those guys? Did you play with Alu Raka at all?
No, not in that sense,
Did you jam with them? I mean, this was like, I was curious. I'm like, if Ravi opened the show, I'm like, no doubt that Keltner's rubbing elbows with him.
No, it was just beautiful to watch and to absorb. It was incredible. And Alaraka he wasn't real good with English,
right?
And I'm certainly was not good with the Indian language. So it was basically a lot of body language, and it was good,
Right.
His smile, he knew that my smile meant a lot, and I knew, vice versa. So, yeah. It was good, Ravi. I just remember Ravi was so beautiful, and Alaraka was older. He was beautiful, and God, his hands. It was just so. It was amazing. It really, truly was an amazing thing when they were on. When they just every time they hit it together, it was incredible. Yeah. It was beautiful, and I loved. I loved how George just soaked it all up. George just, he lived and breathed it. He studied, with Ravi, and he was like an actual student. He took advantage of the fact that he was a Beatle, and so he studied with the great Ravi Shankar. And then Ravi, Ravi could feel the love from George, and then that whole thing happened, and then it was way beyond student-teacher relationship,
I was going to ask you, there's one cat that I've never asked you about, and I've been fascinated because I really dig the record you're on with him. This guy, Jorge Calderón.
Yeah, Jorge.
Yeah, is he? I mean, dude, how did you know him? How did you even connect with him?
Man, that's another one. Jorge called. We talk once in a while, and Jorge would. If he were on the line right now, he would say, "Oh, well, this and that," and he would remember everything exactly. I, for various reasons, cannot remember some of those days. I don't like the inception. I don't remember where. So all I remember was that Jorge was really close friends with my beautiful close friend Paul Stallworth, the bass player.
Absolutely. How is Paul doing?
Attitudes. And Jorge was a bass player too, but he also played guitar, Jorge, real nice guitar, and wrote songs. And it was a bunch of us that were just really good friends, and Jorge was one of those. Jorge had a beautiful feel, beautiful sound. But I can't tell you where we met. I don't remember.
Absolutely. No, I mean the albums are fantastic. I mean, it sounds like you guys are having a good time. Well, I mean, if
Oh
you,
yeah.
I mean, you at the putting a button on the concert for Bangladesh. I mean, Cliff Lipson. You've seen the print, the photo that he took. I mean,
Yeah.
what is for people that are going to listen to this in 50, 75 years when we're long gone, and our spirits remain, in some form, what is the most important essence that you want people to know about it from the musician's point of view, from what you guys brought to the table that day?
Well, I think the fact that George knew that he had all that Beatle clout, and he knew that if he put something together to help Ravi and his hurting people who were really hurting badly, he could get some attention and he could make some money for them. And then when we all joined George in that effort, then we all got a piece of that wonderful, again, it was love, George was reacting out of love for his friend and empathy for his people, his friend's people. And
he used his clout as a famous person to do something really good,
Exactly. And us joining him
right
helped us to be able to get in on a little bit of that. We all love George. And so again, it all revolved around love. And to be a part of that, which was a part of saving some people and healing people and stuff like that. And it's fantastic. And then our guy's photo, I think that's, that ought to, hopefully that'll bring more money. And what is the
Food Forward?
Yeah, the Food Forward.
Food
right.
Forward.
So,
yeah, no, I think it's a.
So that's a tremendous thing right now to feed people. We just got some cards. We got our Christmas card from Ringo and Barbara, and it's they're they've donated a huge amount of money to these people, these food kitchens and stuff, in our name, and they're doing that with a lot of their friends this year.
Wow.
It's a wonderful way of doing things, man. You have got to take care of your brothers and sisters in this world. We've got to. If we don't, we're missing the opportunity to be something that we should all
aspire to be. Absolutely, Keltner.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So hopefully this picture will generate a lot of money, and it's a beautiful picture. It tells it tells a lot of the story.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, you walked away like feeling satisfied with. I mean, like you said, you kind of gave up on the idea of. I mean, you were going to take in a lot of environmental sounds while you were playing, so you kind of gave up on the idea of being able to really hear very well. Are you like the recordings? Generally, you've walked away like pretty satisfied with how it turned out. I mean, it was. I wouldn't say. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, sonically,
yeah.
those are professional guys. Those are really good guys. Those are all cats that know what they're doing. You know, I'm just saying. When you're in the heat of it, it's not. See, you got to remember, I've not been a guy that's been out on the road and had tremendous experience with it. I've had enough experience on the road to know that it's not easy, but it doesn't have to be difficult either. You just have to sort of, you have to find your way, and so you do, and that's fine, But I come from the world of the studio. That's I just have always made records. I've not been, a touring guy.
No, but I mean,
And
like
so,
Joe Cocker, you were touring with Leon.
yeah, I did. I mean, I did some tours, but not nearly, the amount of touring that most of my friends have done as musicians. This, I've just been. I was thrust into the studio, and that's where I've just been for all these years, with the occasional tour, and
Right.
and so I don't have a lot of the, I guess you could learn, if you've been on the road a lot, there are certain things you learn about the sound and how, what you're going to do, and how do you do it, and how do you deal with this, how you deal with that. For me, I'm just used to, the cushy, having good headphones and good sound, and play and go in and hear it back, but playing live is like it's a huge, massive kind of sound. And you have to adjust your playing, you have to adjust your hearing, and you're not going to hear it back. So you have to have faith. You just do your job, do it as good as you can. There's a lot of differences there.
Was it like that when you went with when you played with Booker T and Neil Young?
Well, that was a totally different thing. But it was a massive sound.
Exactly.
And it was fun. It was really fun.
But in terms of, I mean, you didn't have any of your monitors then. You were just
No, I just played.
Because I mean, that's part of it, is the sonic nature of the environment. Like, I saw Little Feat last night, and I mean, aside from just sort of the venue and how it was a sit-down show, which, I mean, Little Feat is a sit-down performance. You have to be kidding me, And
I see.
And those cats were all wearing in-ear monitors, and they played their butts off. But you know what? Like, there's something beautiful about that ambient sound of. I mean, to me, that's part of the. Obviously, you don't want crappy sound, but to me, when you're playing with Booker T, Steve Cropper, Neil Young, like, you want to hear everything around you.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice if you could. No, you have to go by faith. You have to go on faith.
Faith. Yeah.
That everybody, you're playing with Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper.
Oh, my God.
That's
sick.
That
is sick.
And then Neil just swimming, loving all of that. He's swimming around. He doesn't feel like he has to lock in on anything. And it was beautiful. It was fantastic. It was one of the most fun things I ever did. That's. And then, just the opposite kind of tour of that was Simon and Garfunkel, Old Friends tour, where you had real strict arrangement and trying to be faithful to play the arrangements, of course, but trying to be faithful to the sort of overall vibe, and not be every night exploring too much.
Absolutely.
And yet there was a side of Paul who, and again, this is that thing that I'm very, very happy that I have. You could read people. I've always been able to. I had that good fortune to be able to read people I'm working with, and especially when we're playing. And Paul was not a. Artie was more like, don't surprise me with too many things, but Paul would be okay with that as long as it was, as long as it was working, somehow. Anyway, I had a great relationship with Paul, and Artie, really, and the thing that was really gratifying to me was to see that all these rumors that they were going to, any minute they were going to implode, that Artie was going to piss Paul off and Paul was going to throw down his guitar. None of that. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. They're
Hold on, wait a minute. Wait, how the heck wait, stop it. How did you wind up being the tour drummer for that? How did that happen?
I wish I could tell you. I can't remember. There's a real obvious
okay.
answer
No, that's
to that,
I didn't mean to even break that up. I mean, Paul, that blew my mind just now.
It was Paul. Paul asked me. That's all. Paul asked me, and Paul's manager at the time was Jeff Kramer. And Jeff has been a lifelong friend, practically, and we still see him all the time. He and Shelley, they were just over here the other night, and but I don't think it wasn't like Jeff told Paul to call me. I think Paul. I can't remember exactly.
Don't worry.
Jake, if I did Jimmy, a little research, I could tell you.
I don't even need like the first.
Paul,
No, did you? The last thing we'll wrap this up. But I just wanted to ask you: did you ever play? Did you know Cal Jader?
Yeah, I knew Cal. And
you talk about your relationship with him?
No, I just played with him in the studio.
I'm looking at the record right here. Yeah, Michael Melvoin, dude.
Michael Melvoin and Gary McFarland.
Right.
And I know Michael Melvoin was playing, right? Gary was producing, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so that was just one of those really fun things, But I never got to play with him live.
Did you go see him at the Lighthouse, or would you see him with Mungo?
I saw him. Yeah. I saw him a couple of times live. Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, he always had real good players with him.
Exactly, guys like Roy Ayers and Mungo, Willie Bobo, and those cats. But I mean, it's just so fascinating that you were. I mean, you're one of the only cats, maybe the only one who just was able to vacillate between Jack DeJohnette. I don't know. You never did. You know Elvin? Did you ever meet Elvin before?
I met Elvin. I knew Jack pretty well.
No, I know
really
that.
Well,
I know
actually.
you traded sandals at the Golden.
Jack was a wonderful cat and really easy to know and be around.
Yeah, totally, dude.
Just beautiful, Jack DeJohnette.
Yeah.
And such a massive influence on me and my playing.
Yeah, baby.
But Elvin. I saw Elvin so many times. They were iconic moments in my life.
Wow, man.
Elvin.
Wow.
I saw Elvin all by myself, sitting watching Train, and Elvin and Reggie Workman and McCoy Tyner. I sat right underneath the piano stool practically because I was the first one in the club that night while they were still setting up stuff. And I couldn't afford to bring my girlfriend. And I couldn't, and Albert was out of town, I think, and I'm sitting there expecting these guys to come on and play that record, My Favorite Things, and instead they came on, and they were like a freight train running right through that little club.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it. It was life-changing in every aspect. And anyway,
I want to be clear. What?
And then I met him with Charlie. I met him because I was with Charlie Watts.
Wow.
And I can't remember what club we were at, but he said hi to both of us, and we sat and we talked a little bit, and I had him sign the only thing I could come up with was I had a vitamin box, a little white vitamin box, and I still have it, and it says Elvin on the back. He could barely. It wasn't big enough to do a whole thing,
But I mean, we're talking like in the '60s. This happened.
Well, no. No, I saw him first time. I guess it was in the '60s. Yeah, but
you and Charlie tracked him down like once you guys were established in your own
yeah,
careers.
this was in the '70s, late '70s.
Late
probably.
'70s, fascinating.
Well, I mean, it had to be. I can't. Again, Jake, I'm useless with this stuff.
No, no. I'm not
book.
asking for like first
if
time.
I had my book, I could give you all this.
No, but it's like
stuff.
like the fact is you saw him. Maybe '64 was the first. I mean, in that sort of range with the Train, and then like later on, you and Charlie tracked him down, and he had his big white teeth, and he was grinning at you. Did he know who you were? Like your name and the.
No, I doubt he knew. I mean, he knew who Charlie was.
The Stones, yeah.
But but Elvin was. I don't know how to talk about Elvin Jones. Elvin Jones was just. He was so. He just was the most important, one of the most important musicians in my life, and I love even now occasionally running across an interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
I loved his interviews.
I could listen to him talk all day, but I mean, the fact that you got to see him just lay out and play.
Well, to see Elvin Jones play, and not only to see Elvin, because a lot of younger players got to see him, but they got to see the older Elvin,
right.
And the Elvin with his own band, and which was beautiful. But man, to see him come to town for the first time with John Coltrane, Reggie Workman, and
forget about it,
and McCoy Tyner, and where they were playing stuff that nobody had ever played before. It was just mind shattering and so it changed my whole thing. It didn't matter anymore whether I was going to play on records or play rock and roll or whatever the hell I was going to play. That stays with me all my life, right to today. I still, when I sit down, I think like I think Elvin thought. And I sometimes think that I'm thinking like Elvin when I'm playing sometimes. And I'm fooling myself, of course.
I don't care, man. That's the coolest thing I've heard, man. Because, most people feel that are doing that too. I mean, I'm talking about the Cats. Michael Shreve is doing that. What you just said.
We all do.
Exactly.
Everybody that got to hear Elvin, right. And especially if they got to see him,
right? In that special time,
always carry that with them the rest of their lives. Always, no matter what kind of music they're playing.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Keltner, let's talk real soon, man. I just like Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and I love you a lot, man. And you're like a very
same right back at you, Jake.
And just keep it up, man. Keep it happening, and all the best to you and your family.
Well, thank you, and the same back, and you keep it up there too, man. Continue doing what you're doing.
I will, baby.
All right.
Be cool.
Okay, you too now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.